Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And a very warm welcome to Tuesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Now, with Ben Affleck being rumored that he may not be cut from Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, I want to look back at Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Now, later on, I will discuss how Ben Affleck can appear in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and what part he plays in that movie. It's a very similar part to what he played in that original post-credit scene in the Flash movie. If he stays in Aquaman 2, that post-credit scene stays up as well. So very, very interesting. Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice is a take on iconic characters, a very, very unique take, and it was rejected by the general audience, as was Ang Lee's Hulk. I adore BVS and I adore Ang Lee's Hulk. These were two very unique takes on iconic material, and they were rejected. But what has that rejection led us to? Well, I'll tell you, it's led us to the influx of cookie cutter franchises like the MCU. And where has that led us to? Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. That's where we are. What were they doing during the marketing of that movie? Talking about the villain, because they knew the rest of the movie was a mess and it wasn't worth leaving our homes for. And that's the truth of that situation. So that's where rejecting films like BVS, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice is high art. Ang Lee's Hulk is high art. I'm going to be mentioning Ang Lee's Hulk in this conversation quite a lot. That film was rejected for being different. Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice was rejected for being different. So people were very angry. How could you kill off Dick Grayson off screen? How could you have Batman branding people? Well, that's quite simple. He was building up the need for Batman to redeem himself. So this film deconstructs Batman and Superman. That's because Snyder is a fan of deconstructive comic books. So the idea was to deconstruct Batman and Superman in this movie, then at the end of the movie, reconstruct them. Superman is reconstructed by sacrificing himself for Earth, and Lois and for humanity by basically, killing Doomsday and Doomsday killing him. It was the sacrifice that reconstructs Superman in that film. And Batman is reconstructed because he's inspired by Superman's heroics. He's so inspired in the next movie, he goes around building up the Justice League because he knows what's coming. And I think that's very, very important to understand. But the rejection of Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, the rejection of Ang Lee's Hulk, meant that studios would be too afraid to bring in directors like that again with such cult-like visions, visionary stories. Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice is beautifully shot. It looks great. It's a very unique story, but it's also a film I really, really admire. People will tell you that Batman isn't the real Batman in BVS because he kills. But then some people will celebrate the warehouse fighting sequence where it's probably the best Batman fight choreography we've ever seen. Batman's never been more Batman than in that scene. It's amazing. I mean, yeah, he does kill a few people in that fight, so there's going to be arguments. I don't think it's important to get upset about whether Batman should kill or not. Batman is in deep depression after losing Dick Grayson. He's lost and lost and lost. He's an older Batman. He's bitter. He's twisted. He's allowed life to beat him. And it happens to us all the time. And this is the position Batman's in. But by meeting this new superhero Batman, and at first at Superman, and hating him and not really understanding him, just seeing him as an alien threat. He then understands by the end of the movie who Superman is. And it's that sacrifice that reconstructs Batman to go back to be the Batman he has been in the past 20 or 30 years. That's the idea of the story. Stories are supposed to construct characters to be in one position, but then be redeemed by the end of the story. So it's a very unique movie, but general audiences rejected it. And I think at the end of the day, once you reject high art, when you say you don't want movies like this, I heard the call. I remember the call from people. Why can't DC be like the MCU? Well, careful what you ask for. You may just get it. Guess what? That's what we're going to get now. We're going to be like the MCU now. We're getting a DCU, an interconnected franchise telling one story through movies, streaming TV shows, and gaming. You got what you wanted. But as I say, careful what you wish for. You may just get it. The rejection of high art in cinema today is disgusting. But some people argue that maybe CBMs aren't the place for high art. If you look back at DC's biggest successes, they have been on one-off directors' takes on the content. It's interesting, really. Smallville broke every canon, every piece of DC canon in the book. But people celebrate that show. Why? Lionel Luthor is a celebrated character. Lionel Luthor was not in the comics. Chloe Sullivan was not in the comics. What is the difference? Why is that celebrated? I agree with celebrating Smallville because I loved it, I lived it, and it was amazing. And it's a great piece of DC history. But again, a self-contained pre-Superman story. This is where DC have been the most successful. Not in cookie cutter, connected franchises. The Joker, the Batman, Tim Burton's 2 Batman films, Matt Reeves' Batman film, the Penguin film, I'm sure will also be successful, and the Batman 2, Joker Folie à Deux, the first Joker. Individual takes by individual creatives. That's where DC has been most successful. Superman the movie, individual, coexisting takes on iconic material. DC's never been successful in terms of that connected universe. So this kind of wish by audiences, why can't DC be like Marvel? But why do you want DC to be like Marvel? That's the question I would like to ask. Is that really what's right for DC? Batman versus Superman did some amazing things in that movie. The moment that Capitol building blows up and Superman's just standing there while everyone's burning and exploding around him, and the performance by Henry Cavill in that Capitol building moment is sensational. And again, for some reason, audiences rejected this movie. But Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice became a cult figure, a cult movie. Today, it's a cult movie. But it's the movie and the rejection of the movie that really, really, really hurt directors, high art, visionary directors like Snyder. And the reaction to Ang Lee's Hulk is the reason we're getting cookie cutter movies today. Are you happy? Were you happy with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? Is that what you want from cinema today? Bad CGI, basic directing, bad simple writing. And let's not mention the influx of Rick and Morty writers in the MCU now. Why? Why did they decide to do it? It doesn't even make sense. Rick and Morty is great, but the Rick and Morty mentality can't be brought in to CBMs. So it's all right to do that, but it's not all right to have writers and directors with a unique take on this iconic material. So the rejection of Batman versus Superman sealed DC's fate. So after BVS, they went hard to work in trying to create a cookie-cutter franchise. They tried it with Justice League. They failed. Shazam had middling to low success. Aquaman did well. It was a one-off billion-dollar movie for them. Birds of Prey was a disaster. Wonder Woman 84 was a disaster. Hasn't worked. Now James Gunn has come in to apparently fix this shit. And maybe he can make the cookie-cutter movie successful. And if they make money, everyone will say, you know, Snyder did it wrong and Gunn did it right. It's going to be a very, very interesting situation, especially where we are within the culture war. I mentioned the culture war in terms of James Gunn and his plans because his casting will be very, very interesting. Will he cast a white Superman, a black Superman, an Asian Superman, a Latino Superman? It's interesting because they can't afford any blowback this time. But Snyder would have ended up getting goodwill. People didn't really understand what Snyder was attempting to do. The nightmare sequence in Batman versus Superman is one of the most stunningly shot sequences ever. It's literally a flash forward to the Nightmare universe. And he was going to expand on that in Justice League 2. Justice League 2 predominantly was going to be set in the Nightmare future. So you would have got the explanations that you were asking for. Now, I think I'm an intelligent guy. I mean, I wasn't confused by this random sequence in the Nightmare future. It was obvious it was fucking foreshadowing. And it was some kind of vision dream helped by the Flash appearing all of a sudden from the future. It was obvious. But people used the Nightmare future as something to bash the movie about. Now, considering what a beautifully stunning scene that is, that says everything. But you see, by then, audiences were influenced by the MCU, the cookie-cutter movie. All people could see is the adulation and the 100% of on Rotten Tomatoes and the billion-dollar box offices. So all of a sudden, people didn't care about good movies, about high art. All they wanted, their kind of stuff that they supported, they wanted DC to get the Rotten Tomatoes scores and the box office and the critical adulation. And people didn't really care if the movies were good or bad. There's lots of people queuing up to tell you that Snyder's 3 movies are bad. Quite simply, Snyder's movies are not bad. They are, in terms of films, they are outstanding, but they were shat on because they weren't cookie-cutter movies. They were shat on because they weren't the MCU. They were shat on because they didn't get 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and high praise from Access Media and that billion-dollar box office, because that's where we are today. Ang Lee's Hulk, I said I would mention that film a lot, because there's no difference between, in the mentality of Ang Lee's Hulk and Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. It is entirely the same thing. Ang Lee's Hulk was rejected for being unique, being different. The way he shoots it is like no other film I've ever seen. And you've never seen a CBM like that, shot like that, and you never will. Because Hollywood has become 100% about profits. Now, you'll say to me, Mick, but it's a business. That's what it's there for. That wasn't always the case. They used to have the movies that they allowed for the art. And, if they brought home a little bit less profit, that was okay. Some movies, like Blade Runner, the first one, was a disaster in the box office, but it became a cult movie. It became exactly what Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice is today. The industry has become about business and not art anymore. So as I say, the rejection of Zack Snyder and the rejection of Batman versus Dawn of Justice is the reason we are where we are today with cookie-cutter movies. We had Universal try and do a monster universe with Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe. It failed because no one's been able to copy and pattern the box office and the Rotten Tomatoes scores that the MCU, at least, used to get prior to Phase 4, although the Rotten Tomatoes scores were pretty high in Phase 4. Not even Kevin Feige knows how the MCU was successful. People liked that interconnected element of it. They liked the post-credit scenes. It excited them. But there's no question, there's very few MCU movies that are higher in art and, constructing a unique movie like Snyder's DCEU was. There's some good movies in there. Iron Man, the Captain America movies were pretty good. There's some good movies in there. But if you compare them to the best in the DCEU or best in DC, there's nothing in the MCU as good as Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, Wonder Woman, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Aquaman is awesome, right? It is an awesome movie. I don't care what anyone says, right? And, the best of the DCEU is superior to Marvel, in my opinion. And then you look at, Burton's Batman movies, superior to anything in the MCU. Nolan's Batman movies, superior to anything in the MCU. Joker, superior to anything in the MCU. I could go on. So there's no real evidence here that suddenly people are going to support a cookie cutter connected franchise. Now, I'm quite excited about what James Gunn's planning to do. I'm just not sure if he can put it off. And I'm not sure if he can bring audiences for DC back to cinema, because they're not going to support this movie. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is kind of targeted at the moment, projected to bring in a 40 million opening domestic weekend. That, my friends, is absolute shit. It is shit. It's not good enough. So Batman versus Superman made about 850 million. The studio were targeting about a couple of billion. They were very ambitious about this movie. The reason Batman versus Superman didn't make more money was the studio's fault. I mentioned this the other day. They lied in the marketing, and they said that this was a popcorn chomping fight, WWF fight between Batman and Superman. And it wasn't that. And that's the point. And that's why it didn't make more money, because of them. Because if they were honest about this movie, like Fox were honest about what the Logan movie was, because imagine if they lied about Logan and they started having these grandiose fight scenes and all that, and then all you get is a lot of talking between Professor X and Logan, and this relationship between Logan and this young kid, right? Then people would be absolutely angry. People came into BVS because they thought they were seeing a mainstream, beat 'em up. And that's not what they got. They had 9 minutes of a fight between Superman and Batman. Now, by the way, 9 minutes in screen time is quite a long time, but people wanted to see more because they thought that was the essence of the movie. Not only was the marketing insincere, but the title the studio, not Zack, the title the studio came out with was Batman versus Superman. So if you're going to a cinema to watch a film called Batman versus Superman, what do you expect audiences to want? Yes. So when they don't get it, they're going to be upset. But if it was called whatever Zack Snyder wanted to call it, whether it was Dawn of Justice on its own, I don't know. But if it doesn't have Batman versus Superman in the title, then the expectations are going to be very, very different. And that's the thing about it. So if they were honest about the movie and what it was, it wouldn't have got the hatred. What happened to this movie was on the studio and the marketing team, and not on Zack Snyder and not on Chris Terrio. They made a very unique take. Ben Affleck's Batman is still celebrated today. People are devastated that Henry Cavill will no longer be playing Superman. And I discussed this yesterday. If James Gunn is going to direct Superman Legacy, good luck with making it as visually stunning as Zack made Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. This is where the problem is right now, where Zack was being compared to Dick Donner. Well, now James Gunn is going to have the ghost of Zack Snyder lurching over him, because that's what's happened. Because Zack's fans are never going to stop, because the way Zack was treated was disgusting. And what did Zack do that was so wrong? Have a unique take on something, on iconic characters and universes. And his take was fucking beautiful. And we never got to see the ending. I'm devastated that we haven't seen Justice League 2 and 3, that we haven't seen Ben Affleck's The Batman movie. And it still bothers me now, because I know by the time we get to Justice League 3, if we saw Cal, Superman, Henry Cavill leading a metahuman army against Darkseid and the New Gods, people would be sitting in that cinema like they were with Return of the King. That's what Justice League 3 is. It's Return of the fucking King. It's awesome, epic, and he would have made it awesome and epic. You never gave the guy a chance. And what you did by that, you said, we want bland, cookie-cutter movies. That's what you said. And there may be a lot of hype prior to cookie-cutter movies, but in the end, you don't get much, and you get underwhelmed. Justice League is what you asked for, and Justice League is what you got. How did you feel when you went to the cinema? Some of you coming out saying that it reminded you of the animated Justice League cartoons, like shit. Basically, Bruce Timm's Justice League, Justice League animated series and Justice League Unlimited are ways and means, way above the level of Justice League. Justice League is a tampering, is a urination on somebody's art. And that's all it is. Zack Snyder, 20, 30 fucking years ago, would have been celebrated for Man of Steel and BVS and the Snyder Cut. Celebrated. What do you cool kids today do? You shit on him. Why are you shitting on this work of art? And now we're losing that franchise. We're losing that, and we're getting this. As I say, I'm quite balanced and I'm quite happy to see what James Gunn does and judge it for what it is. But there's no guarantee of anything right now. Ronnie Dodge, good morning, Ronnie, and welcome to the DC Universe Daily Live. We are looking back at Batman versus Superman, talking about how the hatred for that movie has brought the influx of cookie-cutter CBMs. And I know a lot of people like the cookie-cutter CBMs. I think Ronnie himself likes the cookie-cutter CBMs and the MCU-type stuff as well. I don't hate what the MCU was in the first two phases, because I think the third phase is when the problems began. That's the consequence of cookie-cutter movies. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania are the consequences of cookie-cutter movies, right? Where you get this movie that's, I've said it before, a bag of fresh air. There's nothing. But Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice is the very opposite of cookie-cutter. It has so much energy and oxygen in the bag. And you can go back and watch it and think, shit, that's what he was trying to say here. I mean, as I say, the explosion of the Capitol building literally predicted the future. Trump's supporters went to the Capitol building, right, and caused a fucking riot. And basically, like Trump manipulated those people to go there, Luther caused that explosion in BVS. This is what a pioneer Terrio and Snyder are. They were telling a deep story in BVS. What does Jonathan Kent say to Clark Kent in Man of Steel? People are afraid of things they don't understand. Guess what? People didn't understand Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. It made them afraid, so they rejected it. Telling me that Snyder's DC movies are trash isn't really going to do anything to me who admires his work, because you've got to sit down with me and be constructive and say, Mick, this is why I don't like them. Running Dodge, I like all kinds of CBM, to be honest. Well, everyone has the right to like what they like. But the damage of rejecting Ang Lee's Hulk and Snyder's, Snyderverse has brought us to where we are now. DC fans, I repeat what I said earlier, DC fans said, why can't DC be like the MCU? And I said earlier, careful what you wish for, you may just get it, because that's what DC Universe is. As I just said, I'm excited about what we're getting, the slate, but I don't think there's any kind of foregone conclusion about the success of all of this. I definitely want someone other than James Gunn to direct Superman Legacy. Yesterday, I named Peter Jackson. If I was in charge, Peter Jackson, I'd do anything he fucking told me to do. And I mean fucking anything to get Peter Jackson to direct a Superman movie. Gunn's still writing it. So he's in charge of the narrative. And that's fine. But I don't think he's capable of directing a Superman movie and making it look as beautiful as Zack Snyder made Man of Steel, or as beautiful as Bryan Singer made Superman Returns, or as beautiful as Dick Donner made Superman the movie. I don't think he's capable. I think he's a better writer than he is director, although the cinematography in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad was stunning. I mean, that's credit to the cinematographer, because James isn't a cinematographer. Zack Snyder is a cinematographer. You know, he was the cinematographer of Army of the Dead, as well as directing the movie. Different directors have different qualities. But this is just my opinion. I don't think, as I said, Christopher Nolan was desperate to direct Man of Steel. But out of love for the Engineer and love for what, you know, Richard Donner did and how he admired him growing up and watching that movie countless times, he knew he had to bring Zack Snyder in. So you've got a visual director, as I said yesterday, and you've got Goyer and Nolan, the guys who wrote The Dark Knight, who wrote Man of Steel. A beautiful, brilliant Superman movie. Now, James Gunn, you have to beat that, because that's what you're going to be, you know, that's what people are going to say to you. Can you make a better Superman movie than Man of Steel? Now, maybe in the writing you can, but you know, that would be cool if you can put it off within the story and the narrative. But Superman, and it's important to get his character right, and Lois and Jimmy right, and all of them. But, you know, you've got to be able to shoot the movie. This is Superman. It's a CBM. Ronnie Dodge, the same cinematographer did Suicide Squad, did The Flash as well. That's very, very true. And yeah, there's some brilliant shit in The Flash movie. Sam Dejan reviews, Matthew Vaughn should direct Superman Legacy. I like Matthew, but I'd be going, these are my choices. Peter Jackson, Denis Villeneuve, whose Dune movie is sensationally shot. Denis Villeneuve, Steven Spielberg, Zack Snyder, they're the people I would be going for. But Zack Snyder's got no chance of directing Superman Legacy, although this industry is strange and anything is possible. Who would think 5 years ago that James Gunn would be running DC Universe? You know, who would have thought that? So anything is possible in this crazy world. Now, there is a rumor that Ben Affleck's role in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom actually hasn't been cut. But what is his role in that movie? So from what I know, what I've been told, it was a call to action. Like he warns Barry at the end of The Flash, that he's stuck in a pocket universe and he needs help. That is what he does with Aquaman. He gives, you know, he sounds out a warning to him that, you know, he and whoever else is stuck in his pocket universe, and, you know, he needs their help. So I think that's what was going to happen. Although there is another rumor, because originally Aquaman and Lost Kingdom was going to be released prior to the Flash movie and Flashpoint. And what changes, that they were just going to have, like, Ben Affleck's Batman exist in the DCEU because Flashpoint hadn't happened yet. So that is the rumor right now. Ronnie Dodge, Joseph Kosinski could be a name as well for what he did for Top Gun. Yes, Joseph Kosinski is also a very, very good director. I think his name has been bandied about. I wouldn't be opposed to him. I think my number one choice is definitely Peter Jackson. You only have to see the 6 Lord of the Rings movies to see how good a director he was. He did the impossible. Adapting Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's work faithfully was an impossible task, and Peter Jackson did it. Imagine what he could do with a Superman movie or any CBM. Use it as you want. I think Superman versus the Authority storyline going to be far better storyline than, say, Martha saying, right, Yusuf, you see, what you're doing is you're putting out fake propaganda then, right? Basically, you're talking about one scene, and I like that scene. So basically, you can compare Superman Legacy with Man of Steel. You can't compare Superman Legacy and the plot and Superman versus the Authority, if it is that, with the Save Martha scene. But the Save Martha scene is one element of how they stop fighting. And if you've got any intelligence, Yusuf, and maybe you don't have the intelligence to understand, and all you're capable of doing is putting little bits of propaganda like that. If you understand what Save Martha is and what their intention is, then you've got brains. It's obvious, isn't it? What that scene's all about. It's emotional. The idea is that Superman has a mother and he cares about her and he doesn't want her to die, and he's not a threat. He's not a monster like Batman perceived him to be. It's a compelling scene. Now, this is the problem with you modern audiences, and this is why you derive to cookie cutter movies, and you are the reason that Hollywood is so bad right now. Sam's Hughes. Matthew said he wanted to direct a Superman movie many years ago, Sam. Yes. Ronnie Dodge. Mick, you happy we finally won a trophy? Yes. Yes, I'm so happy, but I don't want to get carried away, Ronnie. We won the League Cup and the Europa under Jose Mourinho, and then that led to nothing. So I think this is a better manager with a better mentality. He's doing. I'm so happy with Eric Ten Hag, but I don't want to get carried away. Now they have to prove that they're the real deal. West Ham will be waiting. We need to win that, and we need to beat Liverpool, or at least not lose to them. So we'll see how far we come after those two games for sure. But yes, absolutely, first trophy in 6 seasons. Don't care what the haters say that we're celebrating. Of course, we should fucking celebrate winning a trophy. Get over it. Yes, so yes, Ronnie, I'm very, very happy for myself and every Manchester United fan. We're back. Sir Alex Ferguson is speaking publicly as well. It's great. Yusuf Al-Jawan, it's a joke. Lots of people make jokes out of Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman is a serious take out of the material. And the hatred, the illogical hatred thrown at it is amazing. But again, this is a generation of fans that rejected, Ang Lee's Hulk, a movie I quite enjoy going back to. You had Nick Nolte. It was very creative. I mean, it broke a lot of canon, but it was an interesting way to go at a Hulk movie. Now, people can reject whatever they want, but at the end of the day, rejecting great, high art directors like Zack Snyder and Ang Lee has led to where we are now. Look at the people directing Disney Plus Marvel and Marvel cinematic movies. Look at the people. Look at the people directing. They don't even have the qualifications to be directing these movies, even basic CBMs. And this is where we are today. So I'll be interested who finally directs Superman Legacy, who directs The Authority, who directs Brave and the Bold. And I hope these are people who deserve, because his writing team isn't exactly the best writers in the block. I think there's one really decent one. I mean, Christina Hodgson's there and things like that. So, yeah, we're seeing. Sam Jean Reviews. Matthew said he wanted to direct Man of Steel 2. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But that was a while back, and there's no Man of Steel 2 anymore, is there? So, yeah. So there's nothing. Just get rid of this notification. I should have blocked notifications before I came on, but I forgot. But yeah, so I think it's interesting. There are rumours that Affleck is now not cut from Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. But yeah, it's a big shame, the rejection of BVS, because it was a great movie. They were going to, explain everything in Justice League 2. There was this movie Justice League 2 that was going to be set basically in the nightmare future. We missed out on seeing that. User version 1, Batman saying, why did you say that name? It has become a big meme at this point. Yes, you know why? Because of the dumb generation we're in today. Why is that funny? Why is that a joke? If someone was saying my mum's name, who was dead, right? And she is dead, by the way, I'd be freaking out. And I'd be saying, why did you say that name? But unfortunately, the dumbasses who watch CBMs and talk on Twitter about movies want cookie cutter, basic shit. And when anything deep is done, they mock it. There was no reason to meme that moment. There's no reason. You have to be a dumbass generation not to understand the Martha moment. It was emotional. There was a point to it. It worked at the end of the day. So you telling me it's a meme doesn't justify it. It just shows me what kind of generation we've got. It's a generation who'd rather high Rotten Tomatoes scores for DC and billion-dollar box offices without high standard of movie making, which is exactly what you're getting now in the MCU. Go and watch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania for more evidence. Sam Dejan reviews, I want Matthew Vaughn because at least he will respect the source material. Well, I've been talking about source material and I'm speaking about Smallville. Smallville didn't respect the source material for Superman, but we all celebrated it and loved it. Once we start quashing, original takes by movie makers, we quash something very, very important, and we end up on this cookie cutter journey that we've become. Everyone wanted to be like Kevin Feige. Everyone wanted to create a connected universe, whether it's Universal's Monster Universe, the Mummy Universe, that, this, the other. So where we are now, we basically have very few movies being made and very few good movies. What happened to the variety in Hollywood? What happened to the great movies? They're all gone. It's dead. There's nothing out there. And now the Marvel movies are not as good as they used to be. And we'll see what DC do with their new cookie cutter connected franchise. And we'll see if it's any good. Because at the end of the day, we are in a situation where people are desperate to see great DC movies. But by the way, Man of Steel was great. BVS was great. Wonder Woman was great. Aquaman was great. We had great epic DC movies. Joker was great. The Batman was great. Burton's movies were great. Batman movies were great. We've had so much great DC content. Ryan, cinematic DCU fan. Half I love BVS. I believe it's still #1 DC films of all time to me, and I will die on that hill. But I do believe it should have not been made yet until they established the characters first. I'll tell you why I don't agree, Ryan, and I'll tell you why I don't agree. Because Batman vs. Superman was designed as a sequel to Man of Steel and how to introduce a Batman into the universe. So you could argue that killing Superman in that movie may be too early, but I don't think the actual movie, it was too early for it. But again, we're talking about somebody's story and vision. He was killing Superman off at that stage because he wanted to tell a story. He wanted Superman to earn the right to be the Superman we know and love. He dies in BVS. He comes back at the end of the Snyder Cut. In Justice League 2, it's based in the nightmare future. And in Justice League 3, Superman, played by Henry Cavill, leads a metahuman army. It was about the evolution of Batman and Superman. That's the point. He wasn't trying to do a death of Superman thing. He was trying to build up Superman. As he spoke about during Man of Steel, he said, we need to get Superman's house in order. And the storyline and the arc and the experience that Superman goes through in the Snyderverse, in all 5 movies, that was the point to it. So that's why I believe it wasn't too early. He was just trying to tell his story. That was his way of doing it. How can you judge a meal without eating all of it? But people judged him before they saw his whole vision. And in the end, we didn't get to see that vision. Sam Dejan reviews, give Steven Spielberg Black Hawk. It can be their Top Gun. It would be amazing. That would be cool, wouldn't it? You may as well give, although some may argue that Joseph Kosinski should direct Black Hawk, but it is a passion project of Steven Spielberg. So who am I to take it from him? So yeah, and I'd love Steven Spielberg to be involved with DC. I do, as I say, Peter Jackson is my top choice to direct Superman Legacy. It's never going to happen. Probably either James Gunn directs it or some inclusive director directs it. We know where we're going, right? We know that even under James Gunn, I think the DCU is going down a very woke angle, and I think people realise that. I think people will start to realise what's going on when certain decisions are made. It'll be interesting if Zaslav agrees to some of this stuff. the whole thing is going to be interesting. But they're not in a position to be able to upset people. That's the thing they have to be careful of. These films have to be successful. They have to make money. And if they take liberties with this universe and these iconic characters, they will fail. And if they fail, their company is going to be confirmed as bankrupt. So it's up to them. Someone, somewhere has to stop this culture war and has to start making decisions for this industry so they can make money. And upsetting people and race bending and all the other shit they're doing has to stop. Now, if they don't want to stop and they're going to insist in this direction, then they will fail and they won't make money. And they can keep on crying and moaning and hating on their customers in their marketing. It's not going to change. James Gunn said that the most important thing with his DC universe is the story. Well, let's see. Storytelling is important. Characterizations are important. But these DC movies also have to look great because people expect great looking movies. So if you tell great stories with great characterizations that actually look great as well, then you've got something really, really special. So it's up to them. They have the opportunity to make these movies. They own this IP. So it's not that difficult to pull it off. And it's been pulled off before, but not connectively. As I say, the Joker, the Batman are great movies. People enjoyed those movies. You could go down that individual take of doing individual unique movies, or you can go down this direction now. With DC Elseworlds, it looks like they want to go down both directions. Although DC Elseworlds could have just been created just to shove anything that's not DCU, just to shove those things there. So that also will be interesting to see what they do there. But I think what happened with BVS and how Snyder was treated was very damaging, not necessarily to DC, but damaging to the industry. Zack Snyder's now at Netflix. Zack Snyder has been taken away from cinema. Zack Snyder's talent was made for cinema. His movies are made to be viewed in cinema. But very few audiences will see Rebel Moon in cinemas. It will have a little release, a mini release, but it won't be all over the world. Most of us won't see Rebel Moon on the big screen. And that, my friends, is the consequence of driving Snyder away from studios. And now he's been driven to Netflix, who predominantly are a streaming service and release stuff on the television. But Zack Snyder stuff should be made. He's making this for the big screen, but very few people will see it on the big screen. So the way he was treated and the way he was driven out of DC and out of Warner Brothers, by the way, is very damaging. It hurts the industry because Zack Snyder putting his beauty on the cinema screen is very, very important. It's important for the industry. And not to be able to see his films on the big screen, not to be able to see the Snyder Cut on the big screen, I think it's an outrage. Use of as you want. The way that DC works, that their tones are different. They don't have to be serious all the time. Dark humor works so well with DC. DC don't have to be anything. They don't have to be the same thing. But we're not talking about DC having to be serious all the time, Yusuf. You misunderstand me. You should definitely open your ears. What I'm saying is the rejection of Snyder and his work on DC was very damaging for the industry because he's a great director. He puts great art on the screen. He's been driven away from the cinematic element of entertainment and been forced over on Netflix. That stuff is predominantly released on the small screen. So DC has different things with different tones, as Marvel does, by the way, right? And you can do lots of different things. But the rejection of what Snyder does isn't because DC do different things. It's the rejection of doing something unique, doing something different with these characters. People don't like different. People are scared of what they don't understand. And idiots screaming, why can't DC be like Marvel? Go on, good luck. This is what you asked for. This is what you wanted. Now, the DC universe run by Gunn and Safran is going to be like the MCU. This is what everyone wanted. You're going to get it. Let's see what happens, Yusuf. Let's see what happens. There's no escape now. There's only so long James Gunn can post stunning comic book art. He's actually going to have to do the work. Ryan Cinematic, DCU fan. I'm looking forward to reading The Authority because there's something special I feel may be great. The Authority is interesting because it's a bit like the Elite. They obviously are very, they're very different to the Justice League. They're very different. They're authoritarian. They're violent. They're happy to kill to get the job done. So obviously, there's going to be some kind of disagreement between them, Superman, and Batman. It's going to be interesting what he does. Although I did find out, and I have nothing against this myself, but I think it could upset some people, is apparently there is a gay couple in The Authority. So that's very, very interesting. For me, it doesn't bother me. Bring it on. If it's done, as long as it's done well, and you treat, two same-gendered romance the same as you would a straight romance, and it works, and we're all into it, right? Because it's been written properly. I'm cool with it. But a lot of people will reject the DCU because of that, because they're homophobic, because they don't want to see it, whatever the case may be. So it's interesting. So let's see what happens there. But The Authority sounds like a really good idea. I think they're going to justify the need for needing a Justice League. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the Gunn slate. I'm not saying I'm not excited, that I don't like James Gunn as a creative. I'm saying that the rejection of Snyder was damaging because Snyder should be making things for cinema, but he's not. He's making things for the small screen because he was rejected. He's been rejected by every mainline studio. And as I say, 30, 40 years ago, Snyder would have been celebrated. Man of Steel would have been celebrated. BVS in the 90s would have been celebrated. The Snyder Cut would have been celebrated in the 90s. But oh no, Zack Snyder's a problem because he makes high art. How dare he? How dare he have originality? Because originality isn't celebrated today. But cookie cutter movies like Deadpool, shitty little, basic movies, Deadpool is celebrated. What did Deadpool actually do that was so amazing, apart from shoot people and stab people, right? There wasn't much of a story in the first Deadpool. It was an okay movie. Deadpool 2 is shite. And now out of desperation, because they've run out of ideas, they're bringing back, Sir Ian McKellen, Sir Patrick Stewart, the original Wolverine, Logan, Hugh Jackman, because they've got no ideas. So I hope that James Gunn can do something special with DC. I hope. I don't know if he will. So far, what I've seen from the slate looks amazing, and I'm impressed. It's impressive. But until we see the execution of the work and the idea, I don't know. But when you shoot down directors like Ang Lee and Zack Snyder, this is where your industry and business, it's like dragging the guy who put ingredients in the original Coca-Cola through the streets because it was a different tasting drink when it first came out. And it's not like any drink. Do you get what I'm saying? When John Logie Bair invented, the television? Well, this is different. Oh, I don't like this. This is different. Drag him through the streets. He's as bad as Snyder for doing something different. Groundbreaking, inventive people have always been celebrated in our society. But Zack Snyder was rejected. And as I say, now he's hiding in Netflix. That's not right. That's not right. The man's a fucking artist. The man puts magic and beauty onto the screen. He should be directing people who can write movies. I just think it's wrong. It hurts the industry. Ryan Cinematic DCU fan. Midnighter and Apollo are the reason I'm looking forward to reading them because they are a standout to me. I don't care if Midnighter and Apollo are neither do I. Neither do I. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. They all sound like fabulous characters through the research I've done. I'm just talking about the reactions we see, Ryan. It's, I think obviously, if it's done so well and people fall in love with them and fall in love with their relationship as well as them individually, then that's great. I want it to be successful. But there's too many people right now, especially from the fandom menace, that cause a lot of trouble over these things. And I just hope it doesn't hurt DC Universe. But I'm with you, Ryan. You know, love is love. I couldn't give a fucking shit, mate. I love everyone. I don't care if you're transgender, gay, bi. I couldn't give a shit. You know, that's your thing. That's who you are. Why would I hate you for that, right? I don't agree with young children being, you know, told that they can change their genders at 6 and 7. I think that's wrong. But apart from that, once you're an adult, you know, you're born a certain way, you have certain feelings, you should be able to express yourself and be whoever you want. And I have nothing against that. I'm sure that I have subscribers who are bi, gay, trans, maybe. I don't know. I don't have many people like watching my shit anyway. But yeah, I love you. I love everyone. And, you know, and so I'm looking forward to, they sound like awesome characters. I certainly wouldn't reject them because they're gay. Why would I? That would be illogical. But there's a lot of hatred. We know that there are homophobic people out there, that there's people stirring it up. It is a shame. Ryan Cinematics, DCU fan. I also agree. Thank you, Ryan. Sam Dejan reviews. I want the Justice League dark in the DC universe. Well, with the introduction of Swamp Thing, I think you're definitely going to get that, Sam. But yes, Ryan, I think there is a problem. Vocally, there's these like extreme right. You got this, the fandom menace say a lot of good things about how bad entertainment is today. There's a lot of stuff like I agree with Nerdrotic about, but unfortunately, deep down, we know where they're really coming from, and there is an element of hate there. But I don't think the industry help themselves. Like when you hear Bella Ramsey saying, "If you don't like the gay storylines in The Last of Us, don't watch." There's ways of talking to people with hate in their hearts. And that's not the way of doing it. And by the way, I don't think, like, both the gay storylines in The Last of Us have been crammed in 2 separate individual episodes. That's not how you build up a romance. You need these characters to meet and build it up through several episodes and seasons. But they're not doing anything for gay people just because they had 2 gay romances in 2 separate episodes. To me, that's just to say that they've done it. That's cheating. I watched EastEnders as a kid. We watched Colin and Barry for several years in EastEnders, living together, an older gay man and a younger gay man. And it was really educational to someone like me who was brought up from my parents were very homophobic. I loved them. They were great. They loved me and they loved their kids, but they were homophobic. They had old-fashioned views and values. So that was education. But to stuff 2 gay storylines, romances, quickly into individual episodes and say, "Ain't we cool?" Well, no, you ain't done nothing for the gay community. You're just doing it for some cool points. And that's the difference. And when they market and when they talk about people who don't agree with all of this, you steer away from that. Celebrate what you've done. But they're not doing it for the right reasons anyway. You know, then you get Bella Ramsey saying she wears something to basically tie in her breasts so no one can see her. And the industry is mad. It's not helping, it's not helping itself the way it conducts itself anyway. So these alt-right fans are bad, but also the industry doesn't help. Because when you hear idiots hating, you ignore them. Once you start as an industry having a to and fro with these people, this is the problem. But it's not just about that. There is a creative bankruptcy at the moment in the industry. So the industry just doesn't help itself at all. There's not many talented people. The industry has been reduced to comic book movies, to superhero movies, with very little else. The industry in the West, the English-speaking industry, has been hugely damaged. But yeah, I celebrate, as you say, Ryan, that's going to be awesome. I think they're a great superhero team. They're an awesome, interesting superhero team. And if Superman has to fight them, and I don't think he'll fight them in Superman Legacy, maybe that will be the first round. But considering we're getting an authority movie, they will continue being a threat in this new DC universe. And this sounds like a really good idea from James Gunn. But again, It all has to be executed in the right way. Do you know how many great ideas I have for my favorite soaps and my favorite dramas that I grew up with and my favorite movies? I've got fan fiction coming out of my ass, but could I execute it? Could I direct it? Could I make it awesome? It would probably look shit if I put it on screen because I've got no experience apart from directing plays and acting in plays and writing for plays, right? And writing my original plays. So it's a difference. So you've got to understand, just because you come up with a good idea, it doesn't mean it's going to work when you put it out there. It's up to you to execute it in the right way. Great ideas can be badly executed. We've seen it so many times in this game as well. But rejecting directors like Zack Snyder and Ang Lee is bad. And we've seen how bad it is. Because if you don't reject directors like that, you don't get Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Rejecting directors like that means you do get Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. We're getting Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I hope it's a really entertaining movie. David F. Sandberg's been on Twitter talking. I like David, by the way. I think he's a great guy. For him, I want the movie to be successful. It's not looking good for that movie. Many people have said to him, we don't like what's going on at DCU right now, so we're not going to go and support the movie. And he said, listen, if you want Shazam to continue, go and watch it. So, and I think, look, it's a difficult situation. So for David Sandberg and the people who made the film, and I'm hearing it's a solid, entertaining film, as Black Adam was, by the way. So I shall go and watch it, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. And it's a DC film. So without seeing the film, I'm not going to boycott something. Never. I'll go and watch it. So I'll go and watch Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Then I'll review it. Then I'll make my mind up. Right? This is what I'm going to do. It's about honesty. Yusuf Ajuwan, you need to check out Superman for All Seasons. That, I have checked out Superman for All Seasons. In fact, that's where the Smallville TV show comes from. Basically, the guy, I forgot his name now, who actually wrote Superman for All Seasons, they brought him onto Smallville to construct Smallville with them, Alan Miles. And yeah, that was the inspiration for Smallville, Superman for All Seasons. Jeff Loeb, that's it, Jeff Loeb. I remember he used to be in the writer's room of Smallville as well. I used to watch the BTS on the Smallville DVDs. So yes, anyone who wants to know where Smallville, what inspired Smallville, it was Superman for All Seasons. And yeah, Yusuf Al-Jawan is very right. It's a great comic. Yeah, definitely there. I couldn't agree more there, Yusuf. So, but Zack Snyder is still making stuff. It's just a shame. I think it's a sin that he's not making stuff for cinema. And I know it will get a limited release, but it's not the same. I'm not going to see it in the cinema. Most of you are not going to see Rebel Moon in the cinema. Isn't that a shame? He's literally making a film for cinema that will only be seen on a television or a phone or a tablet or a laptop like the one I'm using to do this video. I think that's a shame, don't you? And he was harassed out of the cinematic industry by people who had no understanding. What Zack Snyder did could have existed, as well as something a little bit lighter. And as we're talking about DC Universe now, we could have had Zack Snyder's stuff and something separate being done for the mainstream audience. But Zack Snyder's films deserve to exist. And as I say, 20, 30 years ago, what Snyder did would have been celebrated. How can you not celebrate Man of Steel? How can you not celebrate BVS? How can you not celebrate an epic 4-hour Justice League movie? That movie is fucking amazing. We are so lucky to have a 4-hour epic Justice League, and Snyder did it. Snyder did it, a 4-hour fucking movie. We fought to get it, and I'm glad this channel fought for the Snyder Cut. And I'm proud that I wasn't one of those people who says, oh, it's never going to happen, it doesn't exist. I'm glad I believed it. I'm glad I stood with the Snyder fans with that. They're not always perfect. Some of their takes are annoying, but ultimately, that was a good fight. The Snyder Cut is one of the most unique moments in cinematic history. And it was right that we fought for it. You go and see the Snyder Cut Go back and watch Justice League and see what a sin that fucking movie is. It's like me cooking a pizza, right? You coming along, pouring a bottle of fucking pepper on it, right? Urinating on it and making me fucking eat it. It was disgusting. And it doesn't matter whether you like Zack Snyder or hate Zack Snyder or don't care about Zack Snyder. What they did to him was wrong. He's not the first person to have this shit done to him in the industry. They do it all the time. But Zack Snyder said, you are not doing that to me. And he was right. Thank you very much, everyone. I've enjoyed doing the DC Universe Daily live for today. I was having some technical issues doing a pre-recorded one, so I thought, fuck it, let's go live. This has been Tuesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. With me, Mick, your host with the most to start your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. I nearly forgot my own saying. Anyway, I will see you again tomorrow for more DC Universe Daily. Until we see each other again, go follow me on @MoviesTVMad over on Twitter, retweeting all the breaking entertainment news. If there's any DC news, you'll see it first on my Twitter account, and I'll be straight on here to talk about anything that's occurring and breaking. See you later. Thanks for coming in and chatting with me. I'll see you again soon. See you later.